Hi, everybody. My name is Charlie McCready. I'm a parental alienation coach. I help parents all around the world to rebuild relationships with their children and also to restore their own mental and emotional resilience. And I'm delighted that today I have a very brave and amazing person called Casey, who is an alienated child who has come to help us by telling us about her stories so we can learn and we can be much better at helping our children through their experience. So, hi, Casey. Welcome to the podcast.
It's nice to meet you and get to talk to everyone.
It's so wonderful to have you here. I cannot tell you how wonderful this is for any parent who has an alienated child. Um, what I'd love to do is just start by asking you just to maybe give us a little bit of background as like a very quick overview as to what your alienation experience was like, and then I'm going to ask, and then I'll start asking you some more detailed questions.
Started when I was 10 years old.
Mhm.
I had been told that my mom wanted nothing to do with me, completely given me up. And it just kind of, those stories perpetuated over the years and spiraled into a lot of different emotions towards my mom, towards myself, towards my relationships. And it really deeply affected my mental health. I mean, I don't even know where to, we'll kind of go deeper into that later. But um, yeah, it was just a long road. But I finally, after 12 years, I was able to kind of figure it out, slowly unraveling things through just my own experiences with my alienator parent.
Mhm.
Um, and truly, it's been really difficult, honestly. It's been really hard. But having my mom back in my life now has been life changing. So that's kind of the snippet of it, but there's a lot of chunks of information in between there.
I think one of the things that everybody listening might be surprised, not so much the mums, because there are lots of mums out there who've been alienated from their children.
Mm.
There are a lot of men who haven't quite got their head around the fact that men can also be alienators and that women can be the alienated parent. And I think the ratio, it depends, it's very difficult to get stats, but it's somewhere around the 60-40, as in 40% of the people being alienated are women, somewhere between 35 and 40%, which is a huge number. But you're one of the people where it was your mum who was being alienated. But it'd be very helpful just to start. So how did alienation begin that you were aware of? Kind of what were you seeing as the signs or behaviors of what was going on?
Oh, I think that there were signs from when I was really, really young, but I was not aware of it at all. The first memory that I can think of is I was sitting at my house and my father and his mother were looking through photos of my mom and looking through for just family photos, and a lot of them came up with my mom. And they stated that they were going to burn all of the pictures of my mom, that they were going to throw them all out, burn them all. And I think that was a moment where I thought, okay, maybe what's going on? The hatred towards my mom, my birth giver, an ex wife, an ex daughter in law just did not it hit me at that moment where I was like, what's going on? But I was not strong enough to say something. Really. I said, can I keep these photos? I want them. It's my mother. I want my grandchildren to me, my children to see
Yeah.
these pictures of my mother. And I still am unaware of where those photos went, but that
And
was kind of the first sign.
was that before your parents were separated, or kind of what was the
It was
timeline?
after.
And before your parents separated, was there kind of any was your dad starting to say anything negative about your mum in advance, or did it all happen after they separated?
I have a few, but it's hard because I was so young. I was 10 when the real alienating first started. But So I have a few, but my dad would often, when my mom and him would fight, he
Hmm.
would come in my room and tell me various different things about what was going on and cry to me. And I was a really young girl, so I mean, at those moments, I was like 9, 10.
Yeah.
Um, but I just wanted to be there to support him. I think in my little, now as an adult, I look back and I'm like, I should not even been in that position of trying to support my grown father.
Yeah. Absolutely not.
But it is what it is. And then there was other moments where I think it was more with my sister that the two of them spent a lot of time together that I think it's really it's not as much embedded in my DNA as it is with her, unfortunately. But there was one moment that my mom was really a stickler about sugar. And which I appreciate, of just eating healthy, which they ended up using against her.
Hmm.
Um, but being healthy and eating clean, which is very important for every child. But my dad at one point got this giant donut and he would sneak it in his car, and my mom would not allow us to eat that much junk food at one point, but he would he'd be like, okay, well, I have food in the car if you guys want to come. Just little things like that it's not that big in the grand scheme of things, but it was just like planting little seeds, I think.
It's one of the classical kind of techniques used by the parents. They're basically the Disneyland parent. You can eat crap with me, but you have to eat the healthy stuff with the other parent.
Yeah, as a child, that's so exciting. I was like, I get a donut. That's crazy, but it I didn't realize how it was making her, invalidating who she is, her rules, her ideas. It was just
Yeah.
little pennies of
Yeah.
uh, poison.
What was your dad like as a parent? So what was he parenting you, or was he more like a buddy, or what was he like?
And now looking back, I think he was more of a friend, but
Hmm.
a kind of a bad friend. At that moment, I thought that he was the best dad in the world. Um, and I didn't understand what was happening, that what was happening was not how a parent should act. I mean, I, I was not aware of what neglect I was experiencing, but I think in his own way, he did what he was capable of. Um, so I felt more of like his friend. There was this a reoccurring fight with me and my dad of him throwing large parties at the house,
Hmm.
and having a lot of a lot of men around the house. I was exposed to a lot of
Yeah.
drugs.
How old were you when this was going on?
I mean, being exposed to him being intimate with his girlfriends started when I was 11, which
Gosh.
was pretty much like weeks after he had kind of pushed my mom out of everything. But the parties were really intense when I was 16, 17. And we would have conversations where I'd say, please stop throwing parties at the house. There's random people in the house. These men are coming upstairs trying to knock on my door. And it scared me so. I mean, any young teenage girl, even as a woman now, I would be scared.
Yeah.
And he was not okay with that the parties had to continue. So it was just things like that where it was kind of like we were equals, but not. It was
Mm.
strange.
But also he wasn't kind of protecting you as a parent and putting you prioritizing you compared to having fun with his friends.
Yes, I would say so for sure.
Can you?
Yeah, that was those were signs that kind of I had had such deep anger towards him over the just choosing girlfriends, partying,
Yeah.
and his band. Being in the spotlight was much more important to him any than being there for me. I mean, yeah, so that was really difficult, but it definitely helped bring me to what else is he lying about? Why am I feeling like this isn't correct?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Are you happy to talk a little bit more about, you touched upon the negligence? Because again,
Mhm.
that's really helpful to for
Yeah,
parents to see kind of what you were, people who've been alienated, to see what you were experiencing at the hands of an alienating parent, firsthand. So what was the sort of stuff that was happening for you or to you?
I think I'm still so brainwashed by thinking that the way I was treated was not neglectful, that I have to kind of catch myself and think, okay, that wasn't okay. I was a child, I was a little girl. So just let me think about it for a second. I mean, the parties was the big one. He would have parties so often on the weekends that I didn't feel comfortable being at the house because of, I mean, his friends just were often very, very inappropriate with me. His band members in particularly were,
Did they do this in front of your dad?
yes, they did a few. And that's something that's really hard for me. I had never, I mean, my dad is, it's difficult because if anyone knows him, he's very personable. He's very funny and enjoyable to be around. So it was just really difficult to understand that what was going on was not okay. And it's his reaction to his band members holding me in ways like holding me kind of below my chest, being making very inappropriate comments in front of him, and he just had a big smile on his face. I think that was one of the one of the prouder moments I've said. One of the most I've seen. He looked very proud. I can't even, and that's extremely painful for me to see. I just keep seeing his face in my head of his reaction to one of his friends like openly having his hand over my chest, and he just looked very happy. It was really, really disturbing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, how did that make you feel?
I think at the time I was really confused because I was being told that that's how I I just need to let that happen, that he was just trying to be nice, and there was no sense of having boundaries. So I just felt really confused, really upset, and then it always turned back onto me of I was doing something wrong, that I shouldn't be feeling upset by what he did because, I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. I am supposed to be there to be kind of, not supposed to be there, but I'm allowed to be touched by people. It, it's okay for that to happen. It's not a bad thing. It's totally fine if people disrespect my boundaries, come in my space. It doesn't matter. So it was just a lot of confusion and feeling like I can't trust anyone at all. But it definitely, as I got older, the more that I was seeing young girls that were my age when that all happened, I started to get really angry, and think, why is this happening to me? Why didn't he care? Why didn't he stick up for me? So it was really hard for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine, and that's not the sort of behavior you want to see from any parent.
No, yeah, I thought because of what I was told throughout the years of just having him as my sole parent, that
Mhm.
that was completely okay, which stemmed into my adult life, which having men be disrespectful to me, be overly touchy, I had to really learn to not accept that. But it had been so instilled
Good.
in me to accept that behavior that it just, that aspect of having his friends do that and that being totally normalized and okay and accepted. I mean, he's still avidly hanging out with them, playing bands, shows, and people are still in my life that I knew still supporting those men that did that. It really doesn't make a difference. It's just And I was so young, so it's
Yeah.
really deeply upsetting to know that that behavior is accepted and okay by them.
But by that group of people, as opposed to other people in your life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The other people in my life would, my, I mean, would never accept that type of behavior. And that's how I kind of figured out that it was not okay. I had to kind of express to my friends what was going on and and therapists and my mom and hearing and other family friends, hearing that that's not how it's supposed to be, that men are not, adult men are not allowed to touch young girls or try to kiss them. It's just not,
It's
that's not
completely
allowed.
unacceptable, you know.
Yeah, it's also illegal, but I was so, and that's a huge part of this whole thing is just being so brainwashed. I had no sense of my own judgment. I was basing it off of my father's judgment
Yeah,
and what he wanted out of me and what he expected, which was not a lot, but just to be silent and just let anything happen.
yeah. How old were you when the alienation began?
I was 10.
What age were you when your parents separated?
I think legally separated, probably 11, but yeah, they separated when I right before my 11th birthday.
Okay. But the alienation kind of started before they separated or legally separated.
I was so young and I found emails from when I was so little explaining that I was like, I'm being lied to. I don't know what's going on.
Hmm. Who were the
That
emails from?
from me to my mom, I found emails of I logged into my old email account and I found all these emails that I had sent kind of stating, not kind of, but stating that I had been people were lying to me, lawyers were lying to me. I was very confused. Yeah, I think the alienation started when I was 10. Yeah, right around the time that it was leaving. It was I think whether or not it was intentional, I don't know, but it started right as she was pushed out of the family.
You were very young at the age of 10. Do you have a sense of how it was that he managed to alienate you? What was he doing? How did he persuade you to kind of go against your mum?
I think it was a combination of a lot of things. Just lying a lot, ex- saying various different stories of making it that he was being incredibly abused, that he and my sister was
Abused by who?
by my mom. They
By your mum.
were
Yeah.
kind of explaining that, giving me a million and one different stories. It started from like the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. There was just constant stories feeding me information constantly.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm now looking back, I'm very sure that 99% of that is false. It's just not accurate.
No. And I was also just going to ask, what was the dynamic with your sister? Because it sounds like she was very involved in kind of helping to persuade you of a certain narrative.
You know, my sister and I went through waves of being very close and then not. I think my dad kind of used our relationship to help prove whatever his narrative and prove his stories. But when it was just the two of us, it was great. We both had lived in the same state for a while and we became really close just when it was just us two. But having someone, him or the other family from my paternal side and involved just made things really complicated and really difficult in our relationship.
And was your sister older or younger than you?
She's older. Yeah,
Sure. Is she?
she's about 5 years older.
And how do you think your father persuaded her to kind of turn in the first instance and then become a supporter for him?
I mean, I think with my sister, it started very young. I I think they've always had just a closer relationship, the two of them.
Hmm.
But I think whatever rule, my mom was strict, and I'm so thankful she was because I look back on it now and I wish I had a strict parent as a teenager. I
Mm.
had no guidance at all. So having someone who was strict and held boundaries, who didn't like drink and smoke in front of me or allow that, I wish I had that.
Yeah.
But I think that whenever my mom set a rule, my dad was there to allow her to break it and to feed her information that it's okay. You can do that. It's totally fine. So I think that built. I'm still trying to understand all of this. It's so difficult, but
Yeah, I can
that's
imagine.
kind of what my like slight understanding of it is, because it's so hard to understand
Yeah.
how. But it's also very easy to manipulate a child. I mean, it's not that hard.
I mean, it sounds as if you're still going through the process of really kind of integrating all of this into your experience as to what actually happened and when it happened.
I had kind of inklings of it throughout the past 10 years of just questioning. I was emailing various different lawyers about it, asking, can you give me some details? I would look up the info, I try to find the documents of the court cases to try and figure it out, because
Hmm.
there were so many questions that I had that were unanswered that was like, I don't want to talk about it. That's in the past. That's like my family's favorite line on my paternal side is that it's in the past. Get over
Yeah.
it. The past is the past when the past is happening to me right now. Like this is, and I think that's just them trying to avoid what was going on and not have any sort of responsibility.
To what degree was your dad's family involved in again, kind of supporting you being alienated from your mum?
They knew everything that was going on. They knew everything and they currently know everything. I've reached out to them to just to have some family to support me throughout this. I mean, but I'm unsure whether if it's a lack of care or just that they weren't raised in that way to be kind. I don't
Mhm.
know. There's just a huge lack of empathy with that whole. I mean, I drove across the country. I spent Thanksgiving, Christmas by myself, and
Mhm.
only my cousin reached out to me. My first cousin on my dad's side. No one else did. It was, and driving cross country as a young woman by yourself is not safe. I was just in such desperate need to get away from my hometown,
Mhm.
but I them not contacting me was a sign of, and that they just really did not care that much. It was,
Yeah.
unless I'm conveniencing them, that I'm not worthy of their energy or time.
Do you think that they were kind of angry at you for having recognized what your father was doing and going against him?
I think it's partially that, but I don't. They were never really that avid in my life at all growing up. I mean, they just were kind of on the outskirts. They didn't really make that much of an effort to spend time with me or my sister. It was kind of like we're just there.
And was that the same sort of attitude that your dad had towards you and your sister?
Pretty. I mean, he was always. There were moments of him being a really good dad. I mean, and that's what I think kept me enabling his his narrative and keeping me away from my mom.
A lot of the people who become alienators have experienced trauma themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's come from a family that's not very emotional, they're not very supportive, it could be that there's a link between his experience growing up and the way that he then conducts himself as a parent.
Mm.
But it's actually kind of it's been bred and nurtured um, within an environment where he didn't get the support. It's not to say that it's okay for what he did, but
I know what you mean. Yeah,
maybe that's where it was originating from.
extremely accurate. I struggle with that of trying to show him and anyone in that who was involved in helping alienate me from my mom. I try to show them grace of like, okay, I don't know their family history that probably impacted them, but also holding them accountable for what happened, because it, the abuse that I endured was not anywhere okay. And they all knew, they were all fully aware of it. And they just did not seem to, and I mean, not seem, they do not care. It does not, if it doesn't impact them, then it's not a worry to them.
How did the relationship with your mum start to deteriorate when you were being told, fed all these lies by your dad? what started happening with that relationship?
We moved from the house that we lived in with my mom into another house.
Mhm.
And in between that time was about a year of just moving, gathering things. I can't really remember a lot. I think just due to the amount of trauma that I was experiencing, I remember a few things, but not a lot. It felt like it was a weird flip that I'm still struggling to understand. Of one moment, I wanted my mom, I needed my mom. She's my mom.
Yeah.
Then to being, I want nothing to do with her. I can't be around her. My dad is my everything. I want nothing to do with anyone that harms him.
Hmm.
And then it just flipped. And then it was slowly, anytime she contacted me, I would just block, delete, block, delete. And that was kind of upon his guidance, I just, any sort of interaction with my mom was a betrayal to him and to his
Hmm.
family, to what he experienced to my sister.
Did,
But
did
not really
you
ever given a good reason why.
did you want the relationship with your mum?
Yeah, I mean, I think always wanted my mother. I just,
Mhm.
from what they were telling me, the mother that they were explaining was terrifying to me. I did what they were making her out to seem was so scary. I wanted nothing to do with that version of my mom,
Mm.
but
Mm.
my mom herself, I wanted so badly. I mean, every day I was just like, that's all I. Every single time I saw someone with their mother would devastate me. I wanted my mom so badly, but I didn't think that because of what they had told me that that was even an option. That she wasn't. They would explain that she was so mentally unstable that she like lives in delusions, that she was going to harm me, all these things, which is just all not true.
Yeah.
But when you're a kid, and my judgment is that my dad is telling me the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, you trust somebody who's your parent because like it doesn't make any sense for them to be lying in that
Yeah.
way to a kid. I mean that's really interesting because this I think is one of the things that gives a lot of hope to parents who are no contact with their kids is that, as you're saying, you still wanted that. You intuitively and naturally wanted that relationship with your mum, but felt that you couldn't have it for a whole lot of reasons. Was that something that stayed with you during the whole time that you were alienated, that you wanted that relationship, you just felt you couldn't have it?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's something that has been really hard to kind of unpack, is that the amount of times I said to my dad, I just wish I had a mom. I just wish I had my mom. All
Mm.
my friends are going shopping with their mom. Like, I wish I had mine. I mean, there was a million and one situations where I just needed my mom. And he knew that she was so easily accessible.
Mm. Mm.
And I couldn't I couldn't see her. So it was just there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think or wish that I was in a different position, that I had both my parents. Yeah.
And I appreciate you're so brave, Casey. I mean, just talking,
Thank you.
I can
I'm sorry, I'm a
see.
little nervous.
No, but I can see how these memories are kind of affecting you, and just talking about it is difficult. But I promise you, the hope you're giving parents right now by expressing this ongoing love that you always had for your mom, and it's something that we talk about. It's great to hear from you that yes, this is something real, this is something tangible that alienated parents can hold on to that hope potentially for a long period of time. Like your mum did it for 12 years.
Hmm.
But I hope that she always trusted that at some point you guys would have a relationship again.
I think she probably went, from my understanding, she went through a lot of waves of feeling like they're never going to come back, but then they will. But I think she deep down always had hope that there would be change. And I think I think I did. It's important to note that I did go through waves of feeling like I want nothing to do with her. I was so angry at her because, from what I was being told, that she was the reason why my whole life was a complete mess, that it was all stemmed from her. So I blamed everything bad on my mom.
Mm.
Um, so there was, it just went through waves. It was really, and that's why it's so difficult to understand and try and process as an adult now, just being so angry at myself of being like, why didn't you see it? Why didn't you see the brainwashing? But it's also like I was being brainwashed. I didn't know. So
Yeah.
it's just,
You
it's,
should never beat yourself up for any of this because
thank you.
basically you were being psychologically abused.
Yeah. I mean, truly, yeah. I was,
And your mum was being psychologically abused, and your older sister. All three of you were being psychologically abused at the hands of your dad.
and by other people involved. There was a few people. There was a next door neighbor of ours that was very, very heavily involved, that had a lot to do with keeping me manipulated, especially,
Hmm.
and keeping me brainwashed. So he and a group of people, it was not just him alone. He had a whole team of people
Yeah,
in
we call
instilling
them
this.
flying monkeys. They're the enablers that support.
Yeah,
Why do you think they were doing that?
money.
Money. Gosh,
Yes.
can you
Yeah.
why? What was involved in money that what was going on with money that was encouraging them to enable your dad?
Well, I think the lawyer fees is one thing, just of the longer we can make this legal process, the more money I get, the more restraining orders we have, the more money I get.
Mm.
Um, and the neighbors that we had, um, there was a lot of other things involved, which I don't need to get into, but they had incentive to get in the middle of this and protect themselves. It was not just, then it was not just about my family. They had to protect themselves. In this weird way, but then it went too far. Then they just kept digging deeper holes in this whole situation. I mean, I can't even believe, it's hard to even talk about because it's just so shocking that they would even do this still. I mean, it still shocks me, right? Even saying it, just crazy
Mm.
that they could have done that.
I think that's one of the things actually that people who haven't experienced this, they just can't get their head around the whole concept of alienation and the way that people around the alienating parent are flying monkeys, they're enablers, they kind of support this contrived situation. And also for the alienated parent, they can't get their head around it either because it is if you're a good person, it's literally beyond your comprehension how anybody could behave in this way. But what are you aware of that your mum was trying to do when when she started being cut off from you? How did she try to kind of maintain the relationship or rebuild the relationship with you girls?
Well, she she would send us a lot of information. I mean, not information. She would send us a lot of messages on social media, and she now I know that she would send so many gifts, but they all were thrown out or sent back. My grandma too, on my mom's side, would send gifts and gifts and gifts, and they'd all just be sent right back to her. So she tried that way, and then she would mostly just try to communicate with us on through social media. But it just doesn't. Looking back on it, I don't understand. I mean, I was so brainwashed, so I get it, but I was convinced that she didn't want me, yet my mom was constantly messaging me, just like bombarding me with messages. She just wanted me in her life so bad. But the way that my brain was now switched, it was like she was trying to harm me by,
Mhm.
yeah, she would try to contact us through social media, through friends, etc.
Was she actually estranging you by all the communications of trying to get a hold of you and trying to rebuild that relationship? Was she actually having the opposite impact and pushing you girls away?
Partially, yeah. I mean, I think my dad made it seem like she was only she was out for revenge for him, which is it was quite the opposite. But she was out to get revenge on him, constantly wanting to just ruin his reputation, take all of his money, da 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 da. So I think any single time that if I was to have received all of the gifts and other various like letters and stuff that she sent, I think it would have been different. But I was only receiving the kind of long messages about what was going on in the legal situation, which at that moment I was like, I'm so young. I don't even want to deal with this. My dad is already always talking about this whole situation. I don't want to deal with it.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
delete it and move on and just kind of put it in the back of my head and be like, my mom's crazy. I don't even know. They told me this. I'm just going to believe them. I don't even want to deal with this.
You touched upon a second ago that your dad was sharing information with you about kind of the legal process. What are the sorts of things that he would share?
He would give a lot of, I mean, now I know that they're completely false, but just endless stories about my mom and making her out to seem truly how he is. She was real. He was trying to prove that she was something that she was completely not, but it was actually him who he was portraying. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
phrasing that,
no, no, that
but
makes complete sense. That is kind of
he was just totally projecting, and it was like she's greedy about money. She's this and this and that. When it was all him, it was he only cared about revenge
yeah.
on my mom. It did not matter who it affected or the impact it would be.
Hmm.
So it just yeah, it was constant. From the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, he was feeding me information about the whole court proceedings, everything.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that was all in his favor, and all, your mum was the problem, and your mum's creating all the issues, but he's the victim.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately, yeah, yeah, I just can't even, it's hard to even believe that all went on. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
But yes.
How does it make you feel now when you kind of reflect back and think that was crazy what was going on? And also just how unfair it was to do it to such a young kid.
Oh my God, it's so many emotions. I mean, I think I just feel more sad about the moments that I missed with my mom.
Mm. Mm.
All the like the graduations, just getting ready for school, just everything that I was the majority of the time. Sorry.
Why this?
I was the
You're
majority of the
doing
time.
so well. I'm gonna have to say, Casey,
Thank you.
you're just incredible. You're
I
just
feel like I'm not
incredible.
doing well. I'm
No, you
scared.
are you're incredible. You're so
I'm
brave.
proud. All those moments where I needed a parent so bad.
Mm.
And I had one just down the street that could have helped me and been the parent that I needed so bad. I mean, just in general, just having your mom, you just need your mother.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the most heartbreaking part about all of this. And then the people that knew that pretended to be helping me, it's just heartbreaking. That's really just devastating. All the moments I missed and the moments my mom missed, just in order to have revenge on, I don't even know what the point was. It's because there's no, I don't understand even the gain that you have from doing this to a child, but to yeah, it's beyond heartbreaking.
Mm.
It's really difficult to comprehend, but it's also another half of it is that I was struggling so much with my mental health throughout the past 10 years. Like I went to 6 different facilities to try and help myself because I could not figure out. I was so severely depressed,
Hmm.
so severely anxious. I had pretty bad self-harm issues. I could not figure out what the issue was.
Hmm.
No matter how much talk therapy I did, nothing was working.
Yeah.
So having closure of understanding, okay, I just needed my mom. Like that's all I needed was I just needed my mom.
Did the therapist and psychologist ever talk about the kind of the unusual circumstances of how it was your mum wasn't in your life?
I was working with one therapist for a long time who
Hmm.
was unfortunately, I think, really involved with my dad. Just with just meeting with him, helping kind of perpetuate that the brainwashing. But no other the therapist after that I worked with would kind of graze over it. They just didn't. I was so the my dad's story was so embedded in me. I didn't even know what was reality at that point. I still
They
miss
were
my
kind
mom.
of enabling as well. I mean, that is so unprofessional and
Oh my
immoral.
God. Yeah, I mean my sister's therapist would often come to our house, would often have dinner with my dad, which
Hmm.
is just all unethical, is not allowed as a
Yeah,
therapist.
yeah,
But, it's just I think money has everything to do with this. Money is everything involved in this whole situation.
yeah.
Um, but my therapist, towards the end of kind of finding out, they would often, when I started doing more body somatic work, where I wasn't constantly telling that same story of my mom did this, my mom did this, my dad, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
my therapist would have me kind of sit and be in my body, where I come to a feeling of like, why am I even scared? What am I afraid of? And it was just the story that was being told. And then I started to slowly unravel that, but it wasn't towards till about like this year that things started to unravel, that I started to unravel the brainwashing and realize what is going on. I'm not even really scared of her. I don't even know if that even happened.
What was the trigger for you or the catalyst that you realized what was going on?
The main catalyst was that I kept catching my dad in a lot of lies.
Yeah.
And there was an incident where, I mean, there was a bunch of incidences with his girlfriends where it was very obvious that he made it clear that it was girlfriend, then you guys. It was actually maybe band, girlfriend, and you guys were kind of like on the below area somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, and right before I was moving back to my hometown, my dad put a rule of no bikinis in the house. We had a pool
Mhm.
in the backyard. We weren't allowed to wear bikinis. And the stories that he gave me about 4 or 5 different stories of reasoning why, because I obviously, the feminist in me freaked out. I was like, what is going on? No
Mhm.
bikinis in the house. What is happening?
Mhm.
And the more I kind of pressured him to give me the truth, it was not happening. I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then I started to realize, okay, what else is he lying to me about? I kept saying to my girlfriends, like, if he's lying to me about this thing, this specific incident, what else has he been lying to me about? And I always had kind of inklings of what really happened. Wasn't ever really sure what happened, but having him lying so directly to my face scared the shit out of me. And I could not believe that that was, uh, I was like, okay, maybe there's some truth into what my mom is saying. If he's so outwardly just lying about some dumb stuff like this,
Yeah.
I'm missing something right now. And my intuition just kept saying, I'm missing something. You need to dive deeper into this.
Yeah.
And thank God I did.
I think it's very hard when somebody that you would naturally trust and you realize that actually they're being really deceitful and that you can't trust what they say. How did that make you feel?
I mean, I'm going to use the word heartbroken a lot, but it really, there's just so painful to, especially because I talk often about how it's very similar to like a middle school crush where it's like you will do anything to make them happy, just make them like you. It was just all you wanted. It was just like I want them to like me.
Yeah.
And so it felt like almost after all the things that I had done to kind of keep him and his stories alive,
Hmm.
I was nothing. Like it was just very easy for him to choose to have much bigger priorities than his children. It
And
was
it's,
it was easy.
did you feel that, if you didn't do what he wanted, what were the sorts of consequences that you might have faced?
I'm currently facing those consequences now of being completely executed from that whole side of the family.
Hmm.
But I think the big threat was that you would be homeless. You have nowhere to go. Good luck.
Yeah.
leave, go be with your mother, and then you'll never have to deal with me again. It was just one or the other. And the stories that he told about my mom being so mentally unstable, which is all just untrue.
Mhm.
And I mean, not unstable is not giving him enough credit for the stories that he told. It was just so insane, the stories. So it made me terrified of like, okay, well, I have this dad who seems pretty normal. And if I don't appease what he's saying, that I'll have to go with this lady who I haven't seen in a long time, who's my mother. But I don't, from what this guy's telling me, she sounds insane. I'm scared of both of them. So it was just
Yeah.
attached to someone who seems slightly safer, which I wish I could go back and just shake myself, but it is what it
Well,
is.
and again, I think that's one of um, the after effects for alienated kids because, and it's the same for alienated parents. We take a lot of self-responsibility on the stuff that somebody else did to us. They've abused us, and yet we feel guilty about aspects, but it's not, you're the victim. You're,
Yeah.
you're not the perpetrator, but because you're a nice person, you often kind of look at yourself and say, oh, maybe I should have done this, or maybe I should have done that. It's like, hell no, you should never have been put in that position in the first place. Period.
Yeah. I think that's exactly accurate. And I think that's also why I gravitated to, I was so addicted to the self harm and hurting myself because the only rational thing in my brain was that it was somehow my fault, that everything, I mean, at 10 years old, after my mom had been pushed out, everything just completely executed from the family. I had a suicide attempt when I was 11. Actually, I was 11.
That's
And I had to jump off the
terrible.
balcony. And that my dad, who he told me, because I had been having memories about it for a long time of like, remember this thing, what happened? And he confirmed it for me, but then later denied it. I just kept saying the same thing. This is all my fault. This is all my fault. This is all my fault. I could not. And so this has been an ongoing theme throughout my life that somehow it was something I could have done or didn't do.
I mean, again, that's an awful experience for you to have been through, and to have reached such a point of desperation that you're even considering suicide, let alone jumping off a balcony. And that's a terrible thing for you to have been through.
At that moment, it was so confusing of what was going on. Where's my mom? I need my mom.
Mm. Mm.
And just having everything of any sort of grounding that I had was just ripped away from me. So I was just a complete mess. And being so little and wanting to do that is just very, very heartbreaking. I mean, I suffered throughout with suicidal thoughts, attempting suicide throughout this whole time, but to remember that I did it so young is just devastating. It's really, really sad.
When did this all stop for you in terms of, I think you said about a year ago that you kind of started understanding what was going on?
I got diagnosed with parental alienation syndrome, which
Mhm.
really solidified it for me that I was like, I need to get my shit together and figure this out now.
Yeah.
Um,
Good, by the way, because like the earlier you start well, just processing it, getting rid of it, letting this stuff go, the better.
I had to really retrain my brain into, there was a lot of things that had been really instilled in me of just the biggest thing was dehumanizing my mom, was not seeing her. I mean, I just did not see her as a human being. I was seeing her as kind of an enemy. So I had to,
Yeah.
throughout reconnecting with her, I had to catch myself and show grace to her like I would to anyone else in my life. But because of how brainwashed and manipulated I was, it was so difficult. And I'm so, it's just so sad that throughout all these years, I wish so if I had seen her as a human that she is, a real person with emotions and feelings, then this would have all been very different. But
Mhm.
it, yeah, it's just heartbreaking.
what's the relationship with your and um, I will ask you a lot more questions on a further podcast about
Okay.
kind of how you rebuilt that relationship because I think that would be so helpful for parents to understand. But what's your relationship with your mum like now?
It's really good now. It's really nice. I mean, sorry for it's so amazing. I just feel so lucky that she made it through, that we both made it through. I mean, the mental torture that we both went through, it just I'm so thankful that we made it out, that we can have this time now, that I can have my mom around and I can get all the love that I needed for so many years. So having her and the relationship, the closest that we have now, it makes me feel so good about myself too. I mean, she's half of me. I look exactly like her, which I'm so thankful. But um,
Um,
having being told that half of you is terrible is so detrimental it was so detrimental to my self-confidence. So seeing who she is now and the bravery and the strength, I mean, knowing that that's in my blood is it helps me so much. It makes me feel so good with myself, helps me know more about myself. All these things that I just felt like a missing piece of me, I feel finally like, okay, I have it now. I'm not alone. I have my mom. I'm grounded because I think no matter any situation, you need your mom. I mean, that's just every human. That relationship is so important. So I'm just so thankful I have that back now. And but it's also so, it's so infuriating to think about all the moments that I missed. It's just, it's always the flip side of like, this is so great, but damn it, I wish you were around during this, during that. So it's just
during all of it, you know,
during everything.
you
Yeah.
didn't need to miss any of it.
The life that I could have had and the pain that would have never happened to me.
Mm.
I just, it's, I try not to think about what my life would have been like if she was around, because it just, I would beg constantly, just say, why am I in so much pain? Why can't I feel good? Um, and so it, it's heartbreaking to try and I just try not to imagine what my life could have been like. I'm just so, but that's also, it's just very sad, and painful to try and comprehend and process. It's all really hard.
What you have been through, I mean, you are so strong. You are just so
Thank you.
incredibly strong, and in its own odd way, this will give you so much strength going forwards into the future because you've endured this. You see the world through a different lens to nearly everybody else now.
Yeah, yeah,
And that gives you real power, real power. Only, only the strong can see the world. Anybody who's been through this sees the world in a completely different way.
a part of me is like, I'm good. I'll take the weakness. I don't want to be strong. That's all that I experienced. I'm good. Take it back. Um, but I think I mean, I know the reason that I somehow made it out through all the situations, I put myself in the situations that I was in just from my father. Somehow I made it out alive. And I think it was just to advocate for this problem. This is not what's going on, is severe child abuse. And I do not want anyone to experience, I mean, the parents, what they went through, but the children involved in this, what I went through and what I'm currently processing of the missed time is just truly evil. And I don't want anyone to experience that. So I think having this opportunity now, it does make it better of like, okay, I can make some sort of impact and change and have some sort of empowerment through all the trauma that I went through, that I can stand up and say, I did it. I can help other people. So it goes in waves.
Yeah, it's like a bereavement. What about
Yeah.
your older sister? Is she still enmeshed with your dad, or has she managed to get herself a bit freer?
Yeah, she's very much still enmeshed in that whole whole situation. I mean, I think she's a very smart young woman, and she just, I think the brainwashing is just, she can see atrocities in every other situation. I was doing the same thing. I could see crazy abuse going on in everyone else's lives, and I'm not looking at my own. I cannot see what's going on in my own situation. It's almost, I kept thinking of it as like a telescope where you cannot see anything else but what the story that you have been told.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a huge loss to have that relationship.
And now I guess you kind of see what your mum is seeing in your experience, what your mum is experiencing, because you've kind of lost that relationship with your sister.
Their line is, the past is the past. Stop bringing up the past.
Yeah.
So um, they it does, I can't even imagine what it would be like to have your children taken away from you, and that just is so.
I hope that's something you never have to experience.
I hope so too, and I'm going to make that a point for it to
I,
never happen to me.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I can't imagine. I mean, what the pain that I'm experiencing, which is probably on like a smaller, much smaller level to what it would be like to marry into a family, have children with this family, and then to be completely executed from there with no care in the world.
Mm.
I can't imagine what that feels. And that's so hard. It makes me so angry and sad that they would do all that behind my back, but then act completely different to my face. It's just
Mm.
it's so sad. I'm gonna use the word heartbreaking every 5 seconds, but
No,
it's
but
like
it's what it is.
it is.
But it's also incomprehensible. To normal people, this sort of behavior, we just can't understand it. Like literally, we can't understand it.
I think that's why it took me so long to figure out, because I was just being ignorant to what was going on. I could not comprehend that my dad or my family could do this to me.
Mm.
That it made more sense that, okay, one person is evil, all these people are being nice to me. I could not understand the nuance of it. And I think that people that are, it just is, we are not thinking critically enough about this. We just are looking at just the front and saying, okay, it looks fine, whatever, but nothing going deeper into what's going on. I mean, that's something that I struggle with with people who are still deeply involved in that they are not thinking critically about what is going on. It is not that difficult to look deeper into something and to see what is actually going, because it's pretty obvious. The US government law system is not in any way ethical or for the people. It's completely corrupt. It's not, and I knew that, but at the same time, I was also being like, oh, they helped my family, they supported me. No, they did not.
Yeah.
So it's
But
so difficult.
Casey, thank you so much for everything you've shared today. This has
Yeah,
just been the most helpful and insightful experience in terms of the the thing or you will be helping parents so much with everything you've shared. So thank you.